They called her a publicity stunt with a flight suit, too young, too green, too female to fly with the night wraiths. But when bullets tore through the sky and lives hung in seconds, Ava Ramirez was the only one left airborne. The desert stretched wide and empty beneath her. Wind gusted across the canyon floor, rustling dust and dry grass. Ava Ramirez kept her hands steady on the controls of the Black Hawk, the vibration of the rotor blades humming through her seat. Altitude, 62 feet. Holding, she said softly to herself, eyes flicking between her instruments and the ridgeline ahead. Her bird hovered low, just above the rocks. Steady. Clean. In her headset, the low static of an open channel whispered nothing. No chatter. No eyes on her performance. No one cared. She breathed out slow. Nice and easy, she whispered, adjusting slightly for crosswind. A ripple passed through the aircraft as it balanced itself. The machine obeyed her. Always did. The hover lasted 30 seconds. She could have held it longer, but there was no point. Ava eased the stick forward, brought the Black Hawk up over the ridge, and headed back toward Fort Apgar. The base came into view, a cluster of tan hangars and dusty roads, the American flag tugging against its pole in the wind. Her voice crackled over comms. Night Wraith 04 inbound. Returning from terrain training. Requesting landing clearance. A board voice replied, copy that, 04. Pad 2 is clear. She touched down smooth and straight. No bump. No drift. Perfect. The crew chief waiting by the pad didn't even look up from his clipboard. Ava powered down the rotors and climbed out, helmet tucked under one arm. Her boots hit the tarmac with a dull thud. Hey Ramirez, called a voice. She turned to see Lieutenant Kepler, walking past with his flight gear slung over one shoulder and a smirk on his face. How's mail delivery these days? Keeping the skies safe from cardboard? Ava didn't answer. Just gave him a nod and kept walking. Kepler called after her, laughing. Let me know if Amazon needs backup. Inside the hangar, the air was cooler, smelling of oil and exhaust. Chief Warrant Officer Eliza Tran was leaning against a workbench, tightening a bolt on a hydraulic panel. How'd she fly? Tran asked without looking up. Clean, Ava said. Tran nodded. I checked your trim logs. You're running tighter than anyone else in the unit. Ava shrugged, setting her helmet on the shelf. Doesn't matter. It might, Tran said. Ava looked at her, uncertain if she meant it. Tran met her eyes. One day they'll need a real pilot. Not just their buddies. Ava gave a small nod. Until then? Tran smiled. Until then, keep flying circles around M. Ava cracked the faintest grin, then grabbed a rag to wipe her hands. Outside, the other birds were being prepped for a new mission, one she wouldn't be part of. No one had watched her perfect hover. But she'd flown it anyway. Fort Apgar sat like a sunburnt scar on the edge of the desert. Heat shimmered off the tarmac, and the air smelled like hot metal and jet fuel. Ava Ramirez stepped off the transport van with her duffel slung over one shoulder. Her boots hit the ground with purpose. A fresh name patch on her flight suit read, Ramirez. She spotted the hangar marked Knight WRAITHS, the 160th's Elite Special Ops Unit. That was her assignment. Top tier. Only the best flew under that call sign. A tall, broad-shouldered man leaned against the hangar's open frame, arms crossed. Aviators. Buzz cut. Cold stare. Captain Mason Harlan. She recognized him from her briefing. You Ramirez? He asked flatly. Yes, sir. He looked her over. Didn't expect them to send us someone fresh out of the box. Ava stayed quiet. You're cleared for Black Hawks, I read. Top scores. Academy star. He paused, then added with a dry smile, hope that looks as good outside the classroom. It does, sir. Harlan turned and walked inside. Come on, I'll show you around. The hangar was alive with movement, Ground crew rolling tool carts, pilots checking flight logs, mechanics wiping grease from their hands. Ava took it all in, the clatter of metal, the low roar of distant rotors, the sharp scent of oil and sweat. Harlan led her past 3 Black Hawks, all matte black with mission gear installed, no markings, no questions. "These are your birds," he said. "You don't get one yet. You'll ride backup, do supply runs, keep sharp." "I'm ready for active flights, sir," Ava said. He stopped walking. "Everyone's ready, until they aren't," Harlan said, facing her. "You'll earn your seat when the team trusts you with it. That's how we work." He handed her a clipboard with the week's flight roster. Her name was next to cargo drop, supply, and fuel resupply. The names next to the mission flights, Kepler, Weiss, Brooks, were familiar. All men. All veterans. Harlan raised an eyebrow. "Any questions?" "No, sir." "Good. Lockers down the hall. You fly at 0500. He turned and walked off. Ava found her locker near the back, under a flickering overhead light. She opened it and placed her helmet and flight gloves inside. A faded sticker on the metal read, "Wraiths don't talk. They fly." She sat on the bench and looked around. Laughter echoed from the break room, loud, casual, closed off. She caught a few words. "Ramirez? Isn't that the new PR push? Token spot. Cute helmet, though." She didn't flinch. Just leaned forward, elbows on knees, and stared at the floor. A few moments later, a soft voice said, "Don't let him get in your head." Ava looked up. Eliza Tran stood there, grease on her sleeves, a quiet presence. "They don't think much of anyone until bullets fly," Tran added. Ava nodded once. "Then I'll wait for bullets." Tran smiled. "Good. Just make sure you're ready when they do." The sun was just rising, turning the cliffs gold as Ava climbed into the co-pilot's seat of Black Hawk 2. Her pulse was steady, but her hands moved fast, checking switches, toggles, fuel lines. Everything by the book. Kepler slid into the pilot's seat beside her, chewing gum and humming. "Morning, rookie," he said, flipping on the comms. "Ready to hold my coffee while I fly?" Ava didn't respond. She just strapped in and pulled on her helmet. Their mission was simple: fly through the 10-Knife Pass, a narrow canyon known for sudden gusts and tight corners. It was a routine run for the Wraiths, used to shake down new pilots. Kepler handled the first half. Smooth flying, lazy turns, no real effort. Halfway through, he said, "Your turn, Ramirez. Impress me." Ava took the controls. The wind was rough today. Cross currents slapped at the tail, and the rocks below came up fast. She adjusted pitch and throttle quickly, weaving between canyon walls with precision. Her eyes locked on each curve seconds before they hit it. "You don't have to white-knuckle it," Kepler muttered. "Just cruise." "Birds bucking," she said calmly. "I'm correcting for it." She tilted the Black Hawk into a banking turn, clearing the ridge with only feet to spare. The helicopter leveled out perfectly on the other side. Even Kepler blinked. Well, damn. At the base, Captain Harlan stood with arms crossed, watching the approach. Ava brought the bird in low and smooth, setting it down like a feather on the pad. She climbed out. Her flight suit was damp with sweat, but she kept her face calm. Kepler followed her out, shaking his head. "Didn't know you had that in your bag, rookie." Harlan walked over. "That was some flying, Ramirez." Ava straightened. "Thank you, sir." He nodded slowly. "Nice stunt. But tricks don't win wars." Then he turned and walked off. Ava felt her face go still. Not anger. Not shame. Just the weight of it. Like all the air from that canyon pass had stayed inside her chest. She turned and walked to the hangar, helmet in hand. Tran was waiting near the workbench, watching her. "You flew clean," Tran said. "Doesn't matter." Tran wiped grease from her fingers. It will. Ava looked at her, quiet. Tran stepped closer. You handled that pass better than Kepler ever has. And you didn't show off, you just flew smart. Didn't change anything, Ava said. Tran shrugged. That's not your job right now. Your job is to be ready. For what? Ava asked. Tran held her gaze. For the day everyone else is grounded and you're still flying. Ava didn't answer. Tran gave a small nod. Keep logging hours. Fly like someone's watching. One day, you'll be the only one left in the sky. Ava turned, set her helmet down, and walked back to her bird. She didn't smile. But she climbed into the cockpit again, alone. The hangar lights buzzed overhead. It was late, past 2100, and the other pilots were long gone. Ava sat alone in the cockpit of a parked Black Hawk, fingers resting on the controls, eyes lost in the dark beyond the glass. The night was quiet except for the steady tick of the cooling engine and the soft wind pushing sand across the tarmac. She pressed a button on her comm tablet. A familiar voice played through her earpiece, calm, warm, a little tired. Hi, Mija. I know you're working late again. Listen. I know they don't see you yet. But they will. They'll test you harder than anyone else. You don't get to blink. That's the deal, right? But I know what you're made of. You just keep flying, baby girl. The message ended. Ava sat still. She'd listened to it a dozen times since arriving. She looked down at a transfer request form tucked into her tablet case. Blank. Just her name at the top. All she had to do was fill it in, any other base would want her. She picked up a pen. Her fingers hovered over the form. Then she set the pen down. By morning, she was back in the air, flying solo drills while the sun climbed. Dust lifted in sheets behind her bird as she ran approach patterns again and again. No comms, no orders, just hours and hours logged, exactly like Tran said. Later that afternoon, she walked past the mission board on her way to maintenance. Two mechanics stood there whispering. Blackfile came in last night. Highlands again? Yeah. Intel says hostile presence, maybe anti-air. Whole thing's hush-hush. Wind's going. The general himself. That caught Ava's ear. She paused, pretending to check a clipboard. General Marcus Wynn, top brass, battlefield tested. The kind of man who didn't show up unless it really mattered. Extraction op, one mechanic asked. Classified, but yeah. They're sending Wraiths, Harlan, Kepler, Weiss. Ava's name wasn't on the board. She walked away, keeping her face steady. Back at her locker, she leaned against the cold metal. Her flight suit stuck to her back from the heat. Her hands were still dusty from the tarmac. She sat for a long time. Then she pulled out a notepad and began reviewing her own flight logs, speeds, turns, altitudes, wind corrections. One page after another. The hangar door creaked open behind her. Tran's voice called out, soft but clear. You're flying more than anyone here. Ava didn't turn around. Still on cargo runs. Then fly the hell out of cargo, Tran said. Make that your war zone. Ava closed the logbook and nodded once. That night, she ran one more night flight, just her and the stars. She didn't ask for clearance. She just lifted off and disappeared over the ridge, chasing silence and skill in equal measure. Somewhere out in the dark, a mission was forming. She didn't know it yet, but it would need her. The sun was high over Fort Apgar, heat rising off the runways in waves. Ava stood in the small control tower, headset on, watching two Black Hawks lift into the sky. Call signs, Wraith 1 and Wraith 2. Pilots, Harlan and Kepler. On board, General Marcus Wynn and a recon team. The birds disappeared over the mountains, headed toward the Adu Highlands. Radio check, Wraith 1, the tower tech asked. Loud and clear, came Harlan's voice. Kepler followed, piece of cake, tower. We'll be back before lunch. Ava stood with arms crossed, watching the blips on the radar screen. She didn't speak. Just listened. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. Suddenly, static. Then shouting. Mayday, Wraith 2 hit, taking fire, coordinates coming. More static. A burst of gunfire crackled through the comms. This is Wraith 1, we're surrounded, can't lift. Repeat, we are grounded, taking heavy fire, Win is hit. The tower erupted in noise. Radios buzzed. Officers scrambled. The tech beside Ava turned pale. Incoming distress from Adu Highlands, he muttered. One bird's down, we lost Wraith 2. Someone yelled from below. Major Rudd, the base commander, stormed into the tower. Lock it down, he barked. All units on standby. No launches without my order. Ava stepped back from the console. Her heart thudded in her chest. Harlan's voice crackled again. We've got wounded, need evac, can't hold this position much longer. She looked out the window. Her Black Hawk sat on the tarmac, fueled, ready. No crew. No orders. Just waiting. Tran's voice came through her earpiece, quiet. You hear that? Ava didn't answer. She was already moving. She raced down the tower steps, boots slamming metal. Out the door. Across the hot concrete. Straight toward her bird. Tran met her halfway, wiping her hands with a rag. Ava grabbed her helmet off the rack. Crew up. Tran blinked. Wait, are we cleared? No, Ava said, already strapping on her gear. We're going in. Tran didn't hesitate. She dropped the rag, turned on her heel, and ran. Ava climbed into the pilot seat, flipping switches with sharp, practiced hands. Fuel, full. Comms, live. Weapons, active. Alarms sounded at the base, someone had noticed. Through her headset, Major Rudd's voice barked, Ramirez. Stand down. That is a direct order. She hit transmit. Can't, sir. I'm the only one left in the sky. The rotors roared to life. Moments later, Tran jumped in, pulling the cabin door shut behind her. Ava's voice was calm. Hang on. Then the Black Hawk lifted, turned toward the mountains, and shot forward into open air. No backup. No approval. Just a pilot, a mission, and a promise she'd made, to herself, to her mother, into the sky. The mountains rose like jagged teeth ahead. Ava pushed the Black Hawk low, barely skimming treetops. Wind slammed the windshield. The rotor blades chopped the air in fast, tight rhythm. Tran called out from the cabin, radars lighting up, movement up ahead. Ava kept her eyes locked on the horizon. I see it. Stay low. Below them, steep ridges gave way to thick jungle. Smoke curled up in the distance, thin, black, rising fast. Wreckage. That's them, Tran said. One's burning. Ava didn't answer. She angled the bird tighter, following the smoke trail. The terrain was rough, trees clawed at the skids, air currents punched the frame. There! Tran shouted, pointing. Wraith 2 was a wreck, crumpled and charred, half buried in a ravine. A few hundred yards ahead sat Wraith 1, grounded. Its tail rotor was missing, and smoke puffed from its engine. Figures moved around it, too many. Some wore Wraith gear. Others didn't. Gunfire cracked. They're under fire. Ava said. She radioed. Wraith 1, this is Ramirez. Hold tight, I'm inbound. Harlan's voice came through, rough and sharp. We're pinned down. General's bleeding bad. We're not gonna hold. Bullets pinged off rocks near the downed bird. Ava clenched her jaw and angled in. Tran yelled, we're taking fire. Rounds ripped past them. Leaves exploded. A branch smacked the side door. Then, crack. A hit. Warning lights blinked on the dash. Sheared tail armor, Tran called. Birds still flying. Good. Keep it flying. Ava dropped toward the clearing near the wreck. It was tight, trees on both sides, barely wide enough. She took the risk. Set us down. Tran shouted. I'm working on it. The skids touched down with a hard jolt. Ava held the controls steady as Tran flung the cabin door open. Kepler stumbled out of cover, dragging a bleeding soldier. Harlan followed, one arm wrapped tight around the general, who was unconscious, blood across his vest. Tran jumped out to help. Ava kept one hand on the stick, scanning the treeline. Shadows moved. Muzzle flashes. More gunfire. Ava shouted, "Move, move, move." Tran and Kepler hauled the general inside. Harlan helped shove in the last wounded man. Go! Harlan yelled. Ava didn't wait. The second the doors slammed, she throttled up. The Black Hawk roared, blades slicing the air, lifting them above the gunfire. Bullets chased them, one shattered a window, another pinged off the engine casing. Come on, girl, Ava muttered. Hold together. The bird groaned but climbed. Tran yelled from the cabin, General still breathing, but barely. Kepler dropped into the seat beside Ava, panting. That landing, Jesus. She didn't look at him. Sit down. We're not clear yet. She banked hard, cutting back through the canyon, weaving between the cliffs. Behind them, the jungle faded. Smoke trailed in their wake. Inside the cabin, the wounded groaned. Blood smeared the floor. The general's head rested against Tran's lap. But they were in the sky. And Ava was flying. The Black Hawk rattled as it cut through the air. Ava's hands gripped the controls tight. Lights flickered on the dash, navigation offline, minor rotor damage warning blinking red. Rotor's off balance, she muttered. We've got maybe 15 minutes before it gets worse. From the cabin, Tran called over comms, General's bleeding bad. I need hands. Kepler looked back, frozen. Ava made a decision. Kepler, take the stick. What? You heard me. He slid into the pilot seat, grabbing the controls. Ava unbuckled, yanked off her gloves, and rushed to the back. The cabin smelled like smoke and blood. Tran knelt over the general, hands slick with red. Pressure's not enough, she said. He's losing too much too fast. Ava knelt and pressed both hands hard on the general's wound, lower abdomen, deep and wet. He didn't move. Too pale. Too quiet. Tell me what to do, Ava said. Tran keyed her mic field protocol. Plug the wound and stabilize until we're down. I'm reading off the med sheet. Ava nodded. I've got pressure. Tran read instructions aloud, tear open the pack. You need to push the gauze in deep, until you can't anymore. Ava followed her voice, hands steady. Blood soaked her sleeves, but she didn't stop. Behind them, Kepler shouted, We've lost NAV, I'm flying blind. Ava yelled back, Fly toward the ridge. You'll see the tower lights if we're close. In the command tower, Major Rudd paced, red-faced. Unauthorized launch. Reckless disobedience. When she lands, I want her grounded. Court-martial review. A junior tech at the radar console spun around. Sir, she saved them. Rudd narrowed his eyes. Excuse me? If Ramirez hadn't gone, Wraith 1 would have been wiped out. The general would be dead. She heard the call and acted. That's what pilots do, right? Rudd didn't answer. He just stared at the radar. Back in the bird, Ava pushed the last of the gauze into the wound, hand trembling. Tran secured it with wrap. The general's breathing was shallow, but still there. Got it, Tran said. He's stable, for now. Ava scrambled forward, switching seats with Kepler again. She wiped her hands on her vest, eyes scanning the sky. There, she shouted. Runway lights. Fort Apgar's landing strip came into view, barely a line in the dust. I need full reverse pitch, she said. Rotor's weak, we only get one shot at this. Kepler braced. You think we'll make it? Ava narrowed her eyes. We didn't come this far to crash. The Black Hawk's rotors slowed, coughing smoke as the bird wheezed to a stop on the runway. One skid had collapsed in the landing. The tail dragged a groove in the tarmac. Ava sat frozen in the cockpit, hands still on the controls. Outside, base sirens wailed and red lights flashed. Medics swarmed the helicopter, lifting the wounded out. Tran guided them, her hands still stained with blood. The general was rushed onto a stretcher. His face was pale, but he was breathing. Ava climbed down from the pilot's seat, boots hitting the ground with a soft thud. Her knees almost buckled. She caught herself. Dust blew across the runway as she stood tall. She turned, and saw them. 2 military police officers. Standing still. Waiting. One held a set of cuffs. Ava stopped walking. Chief Warrant Officer Ava Ramirez, one MP said, voice flat, you're under arrest for disobeying direct orders and unauthorized deployment of a military aircraft. Tran turned sharply. Are you serious? She just saved the general's life. Rudd stepped into view, arms crossed, face like stone. That doesn't excuse insubordination. Kepler limped from the bird, arm in a sling, blood on his uniform. He watched from a few feet away, face unreadable. No one moved. Ava looked from Rudd to the MPs. Her jaw clenched, but her eyes stayed clear. I did what I had to, she said quietly. Turn around, one MP said. She nodded. She turned. The cuffs clicked behind her back, cold steel against her wrists. No one spoke. The wind kicked up dust, stinging her eyes. Tran looked like she wanted to scream, but stayed silent. Kepler looked down at the ground. The medics kept moving. The base kept running. No applause. No welcome. Just silence. Ava stood still, shoulders squared. Not proud. Not defiant. Just standing. The MPs led her toward the holding area near the tower. Her boots left small prints in the sand behind her. Someone in the control tower spoke into the radio, but it was muffled and distant. Base life resumed, technicians moving gear, other birds preparing for drills, someone calling for fuel. It was like none of it had happened. Like saving a life had cost her everything. As they walked past the medical tent, Ava caught a glimpse inside. The general's stretcher. His chest rising, steady. That was enough. Her mother's voice echoed faintly in her head. They'll test you harder. You don't get to blink. She didn't blink. She didn't cry. She just walked. Behind her, Kepler finally spoke, just loud enough for her to hear. You shouldn't be the one in cuffs. Ava didn't turn. She just kept walking into the holding bay, the metal door shutting with a heavy clang behind her. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beep of monitors. General Marcus Wynne blinked slowly, eyes adjusting to the soft lights above him. His chest hurt. His side felt tight and wrapped. But he was alive. A nurse noticed him stirring and tapped her comm. He's awake. Within minutes, Major Rudd stepped into the room. He looked relieved, briefly, but his voice stayed firm. Sir. You're stable. We got you out in time. Wynne cleared his throat. What happened? Last I remember, the bird was down. Smoke. Gunfire. You were unconscious, Rudd said. Our team was hit during extraction. Wraith 2 was destroyed. Wraith 1 grounded. You were surrounded. Wynne's brow furrowed. Then who flew me out? Rudd paused. One of ours disobeyed orders. Unauthorized takeoff. Flew into enemy fire. Brought you and the team back. Wynne stared. Who? She's new. Chief Warrant Officer Ava Ramirez. Wynne shifted slightly in the bed, wincing. Then he said, flatly. Then promote her. Rudd blinked. Sir? You heard me. The rookie saved 6 lives and mine. You give her a write-up, and I'll tear it up myself. She didn't disobey, she led. The room was silent for a moment. Yes, sir, Rudd said quietly. Ava sat in the holding bay, still in her flight suit, still cuffed. Her wrists ached. She stared straight ahead. Waiting. The door opened. Rudd walked in, alone. He didn't say anything at first. Just stood there, hands behind his back. Finally, he spoke. General Wynn's awake. Ava looked up. He asked who flew him out. I told him. His response was, then promote her. Ava blinked. What? Rudd took a breath. Charges are dropped. You're cleared. Effective immediately, you're reinstated. Recommendation for commendation is in progress. He pulled a key from his pocket and unlocked the cuffs. They clicked open. Ava stood slowly, rubbing her wrists. She didn't smile. She didn't speak. Rudd gave a short nod. You were right to go. Then he left. 2 days later, Ava walked into the hangar. Her bird, scarred and patched, was being cleaned by the maintenance crew. Tran was already there, talking with a medic. When Ava stepped in, the noise quieted. Harlan, his arm in a sling, stepped forward. I heard, he said. General told the whole ward you saved his life mid-flight. Ava didn't respond. Harlan added, I was wrong about you. He reached out with his good hand and offered it. You flew like a wraith. Welcome to the unit. She shook his hand. He gave her a crooked grin, then stepped back. The others clapped. Nothing loud. Nothing showy. But real. One by one, crew members nodded, some giving small smiles, some just a look. Kepler stood near the door. He didn't clap. But he gave her a single nod. It was enough. Ava exhaled. She looked at her bird. Looked at the sky beyond the open hangar doors. She had flown into fire. And now, she was finally home. If you were moved by Ava's journey, her grit, her courage, her quiet strength, share this story with someone who needs a reminder. You don't need permission to rise. You just need the moment. Want more stories about resilience, leadership, and breaking barriers? Subscribe, share, and follow for the next mission.